Hello. In today, we'll continue with Heart of Amethyst. There's only one character left to cover now, and that's Ikalis. Honestly, I would feel really guilty if I didn't continue with the investigation at this point. I'm so close, I can almost taste the truth. Besides, I lost 15 years of her life already. I don't know if I could give myself the liberty to waste any more time. And the library didn't sound like a good idea to gather information. Maybe I'll even find something about the apostle. It's a long shot, but it can't hurt to try, right? So with nothing left to plan, I stood up from the bench and then headed towards the castle's gates. Hopefully I won't get lost, although the higher city is still unknown to me, so perhaps I should ask a guard to point me in the right direction. The day will never come when I'm not impressed by the scenery. Row after row of books perfectly aligned and organized in massive cells that reach all the way to the ceiling. Those same books flying around as if they were birds in their natural habitat, and the relaxing sound of occasional page flipping resonates loudly throughout the empty halls of the building. It was magical in its own way. I returned my gaze to the pile of books still ahead of me, waiting to be read. Then my attention shifted to the girl by the front desk. The attendant was sitting just a few feet away from my table, reading a book while drinking some hot tea. As she noticed me staring, she raised her hand and offered me a sweet smile. I was quite lucky to run into her, as she kindly helped me search for the books I was looking for. Without her, I wouldn't have been able to find even a single one of them. All that after I explained who I was, of course, as the library was not open for everyone. Still, the fact that she offered to help me with the whole whistle thing was more than kind enough. It was my second time seeing it, but it remained just as impressive. In any case, I decided not to dilly-dally for longer in my thoughts and returned to my reading. I was currently inquiring about the church's history and making, but it was honestly taking me nowhere. I pretty much knew of or heard about all of it already. So at that point, after 5 hours of reading, I felt like I was wasting my time. Goddesses, my head can't take it anymore. I leaned back on the chair, sighing deeply as I closed my eyes, trying to relax myself. I could easily hear the bones in my back snapping, as I've been sitting here for far longer than I should. What made this even more frustrating, though, was the fact that there was not a single mention of the apostle, the purple eyes, or the involvement of the church in any sort of shady business. So they either cover their tracks masterfully, or they indeed have nothing to hide. But that can't be true. It just can't. It's just a gut feeling, but I'm sure of it. They're hiding something. Soon a flashback of that time came back to me. The fire, the glint of the dagger, the taste of blood, the look on her face. I trembled at the thought of my own memories. I tried to repress them as much as I could, but in times like these, when boredom and stress piled on, my brain just bombarded me with them. I was not expecting any visitors. A cranky and unknown voice whispered those creepy words behind my ear, making me lose balance and hit my head with the floor as I fell from my chair. I hissed the pain and held the point of impact with both my hands. Then I looked up and saw the laughing face of Ikalis, who was just standing there with a few books in his arms. What the fuck was that? Keep your voice down, please. You're at a library. Even as the assistant scolded us, Ikalis' grin never vanished as he walked to the other end of the table and placed those books down. I, on the other hand, stood up from the floor and picked up the chair that had fallen with me. Also, you're not supposed to walk the chairs in the library. Consider that a lesson. Screw you, man. That hurt like hell. Well deserved. Anyway, what are you doing here? I would expect you to be anywhere but here. Well, I wanted to read a little about, the investigation. I pointed toward the books I was reading in hopes that he would understand what I meant. After all, he was the one that had helped me with it previously. Oh, I see. Sorry to disturb you. No, it's okay. Aside from some head trauma, your presence is more than welcome. Ikalis' cheeks turned a little red as I said that, but he quickly hid his face behind the book. Only his eyes poked out, and they were curiously looking at me. I needed someone to talk to. Ikalis was normally a very level-headed person, so I figured I could talk to him about some of the problems that were eating me up. Maybe that'll help me relax. Sure, what do you wish to discuss? Well, there's something that's been bugging me for the past few months, and it's been getting even worse in the last few days. I don't know what to do. You see, I've been getting these vivid nightmares lately. I didn't want to break it up before because I thought it was due to stress, but it's getting out of hand. I can't get a good night's sleep anymore. Nightmares, you say? Ikalis pressed his hand against his chin and then looked to the side, probably trying to sort out his thoughts. Your first hypothesis was not entirely wrong. Nightmares usually occur due to traumatic experiences and stress. Dreams are often related to the reinforcement of neural connections, which means if your brain believes you are in danger, that will be represented in your dreams as a way of self-defense. In other words, your brain is training you for the worst when you sleep. Do you consider yourself to be in great peril? I don't think so. At least not right now. Is that so? Maybe if we analyze the content of the dream, we can come up with a hypothesis. Have you been dreaming about? What have you been dreaming about? I felt a little nervous at the time, and as I didn't want him to think I was insane, but I really needed the opinion of a professional. I couldn't go on like this. It was turning me crazy. So in my dreams, I'm floating in this big pool of darkness. I'm surrounded by it, and even if I have no body, I can still feel how it has a hold of me. I can't move and I can't scream. As I've said, I'm just a conscious floating in nothingness. Then I started hearing whispers, voices that infiltrate my thoughts, and I can do nothing to stop them. Eventually this thing shows up. It talks to me, usually to say negative comments though. Then, as it's about to get me, I wake up. Ikalis sat quietly throughout my whole explanation, his eyes fixed in mine as he was analyzing every word that came out of my mouth. I see. Very frightening indeed. Give me a moment. I remember reading about this somewhere. Let me see if I can remember this title correctly. Ikalis stood up from his chair and then walked to the center of the table where that weird symbol was. He placed his hand on top of it and performed the familiar ritual. Moments later, a single book came flying and landed perfectly in his hands. Let's see. Teeth falling. Snakes. Naked in public. I chuckled and Ikalis' cheeks went red immediately. He was so cute. I loved that part of him. Here, being unable to move. This type of dream where immobility takes over our movements is rooted in the fear of making momentous decisions. Does that make any sense to you in your current situation? Yeah, it's actually kind of uncanny how accurate it is. I told you, dreams train you for the worst. So this dream is probably your brain telling you that a decision needs to be done. Once you do, I believe you will be able to relax and the dream will go away on its own. Thanks, man. No problem. I'm glad I could help. By the way, I'm not supposed to be telling this to anyone, but I dragged my chair closer to Wolf to the point where I was sitting mere inches from him. Then I whispered to his ear, "The king asked me to be the prince's royal advisor." What? Ikalis raised his voice in a moment of astonishment, making the lady from the counter give us the dead eye. Ikalis' cheeks turned a little red in return, but then he leaned closer and whispered to me, "Is that a joke? Trust me, I wish it were, but this shit is real, man. He wants me to take the position for a few months before the prince is crowned as the next king. I have until the end of the week to make a decision." That's madness. What's the king thinking? I know, right? That's what we said, but he didn't listen. Well, maybe he's got a plan. Ikalis tried to encourage me with a smile, but he was really nervous as well, so it didn't work out pretty well. The king is a very wise man, so perhaps this falls within his calculations. And for your sake, let's hope it happens. What do you mean? Ellie, this is serious. Probably more serious than what you give it credit for. The king's advisor is the second most important position in all the kingdom. Anything could happen. Hey, Ikalis, you're freaking me out, man. Stop it. I'm sorry, it wasn't my intention. The wolf looked down, a little ashamed of himself. While I really appreciated his concern, his freaking out wasn't helping any of us. Can you tell me at least a little about what it means to be a royal advisor? Of course, at least I can help with that. He adjusted himself, hence returning to calm mode. So as I said, it's a really important decision. Usually the heir chooses his own advisor, but it seems the king wants to force the role into you. You'll be in charge of making very important decisions, such as passing laws punishing major criminals, dealing with external and internal affairs, among other things. King Barnabas makes the final call, of course, but a good king always listens to his advisor. That's why it is well known for royalty to pick their closest friends for the position. But I barely know Prince Barnabas. Indeed. Who's your current royal advisor? Oh, that would be Lord William Marner from the Marner dynasty. They rule over the land of Cantropia up north. He and King Ikalis have known each other since they were kids. So he's also pretty old, huh? Yes, they are close in age. Is there anything else you would like to know? How about your opinion? You think I should do it? Well, whatever you choose, it will not be easy. If you deny the position, you will no longer have a title unless Prince Barnabas decides to rename you as his retainer. So I'll probably be thrown out of the castle. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, for your and the rest of the retainers' sake. Damn, of course. You guys are in the meat grinder too. Ikalis sighed deeply as he offered me an apologetic smile. On the other hand, if you decide to become the advisor, you'll be thrown to the wolves, both literally and metaphorically, which means I'm screwed either way. Well, I certainly don't envy your position, but it could be a lot worse. Think about it. You've been given the chance to influence the opinion of the most important figure of the entire kingdom. I wouldn't take that lightly. My advice, think about it thoroughly. Okay, thanks, man. No problem. I'm glad that I could help. at least with knowledge. So, I'm not sure you know, but the princess is getting married. Yes, I heard the rumors. Certainly shocking, isn't it? Tell me about it. I met her. I met with her last night. She seemed pretty upset. She's probably distressed. Well, she's probably distressed. Sadly, she has no say in this. It's customary for the princesses of the royal family to be wed to important husbands. That way, they can make strategic connections with other families and then so strengthen the crown. It's their duty, so to speak. That's bullshit. They should be able to make that decision for themselves. The fact that they're forcing them is just awful. After that, we both remained quiet. I could feel the tension building up between us. We were clearly both displeased with this in some way. Talking about it wasn't going to change anything though, so I guess we decided to move on from the topic. Oh, by the way, I've been pondering about magic lately. After the first class, we haven't taught much about it. Besides the presentation at the King's Ball, got me thinking. How does elemental magic really work? I mean, even a walk can do it, apparently. Why can't I? Hey, don't feel bad. That walk is a technological discovery of the century, and you are untrained. But you tried to train me, and it didn't work. Maybe we should try again some other time. For now, I feel like an explanation is necessary. Because a walk can't do magic, Ellie. A scholar programmed that walk to do magic. There's a difference. Ikalis grazed my shoulder with his hand, but immediately took it away as his cheeks turned a little red. Alright, I'm listening. The wolf smiled and wagged his tail at me as he tends to do when he explains things. He's just a big softy nerd who likes to hear himself talk, and to be honest, I really like that side of him. So as I explained before, we are all born with different eye colors, each for a different type of quem use, correct? So blue-eyed people are born with the innate ability to understand and see the natural flow of matter outside of themselves. What I'm trying to say is people like me have an easier time understanding the world around us. Even a kid can create a small fire if it tries hard enough. And that's why elemental magic is considered the most basic type of magic. Hence why it's widely used for most researchers. It's very easy to learn and it has many practical applications. But what exactly do you control? We take, for example, the book system in this library. As you focus your senses and guide the quem, the book seems to float, but it's not really floating, it's just its matter being altered. Another example would be the quem present in the ear itself. If I make it go faster and faster, the particles will soon turn to a flame. It's incredible, but it certainly has some sort of limitation, right? Only limitation would be organic matter. Blue-eyed people cannot affect any type of animal or plant. Ikalis seemed content with his explanation as he leaned on his chair across his arms. I, on the other hand, still had one last question I wanted to ask. So what if I accidentally started a fire? Could I stop it with magic too? A good magician wouldn't let the fire out of his control in the first place. But if they must, they could just slow down the quem around the fire and move away all the oxygen surrounding it. It will go down by itself that way. Although it would certainly be harder to perform. I see. Of course, that idiot wouldn't be able to do such a thing. He could hardly put two and two together. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I was just lost in thought. I nervously responded and tried to brush it off. Ikalis was looking at me as I was as I would decide to start. Ikalis was looking at me as I would decide to start a fire at any given second. Although thinking about it, it's a fair assumption given my old record. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see the letters here. We're in white, but like when you see the white coloring or light colors of the characters and the CZs, it kind of makes it hard for me to see the text. Luckily, he knows that I didn't want to talk about it and questioned me no further. Well, I still get going. I'm still on the clock, and there's a lot to do. Thank you for the diversion, though. No problem. Thank you for listening. The wolf nodded at that and then rose from his chair. He put it in place before waving back at me. Then he turned around and walked away into the endless library walls. In Ikalis' presence vanished, my mind started to wonder about everything we talked about. A single sigh escaped my mouth as I decided to stop the investigation for the day. There was no real use in reading any more of these books after all. I'll have to find my sources somewhere else. There's nothing like a good read to set the mind at ease and maybe even put it to sleep. Also, I haven't read a good book since we left the island a week ago. All that has happened makes it sound like forever ago, but in reality, I can still see myself roaming the halls of Lagana Fortress. Can't believe I spent 3 months of my life in there, and now all of a sudden it's gone. Although, to be honest, that's how hectic my life has been as of late. Wish I could go back to my old room, though. I really miss it. I mean, I even started to get my own personal book collection as Ikalis Awadric would bring some to me after their work days in the city. Maybe I could ask the king if I can get them back. In any case, I decided not to dabble deeper into nostalgia and just get going. No use thinking about the past. No time like the present. The hard city streets were bustling with activity. Citizens of all kinds walked around, either enjoying their day or working hard to earn today's salary. I decided to join the first group, strolling around the stone streets. As I casually listened to the display of some shops I passed by. There weren't many bookstores, though. As I walked, I hardly spotted any, and to make it worse, I think one of the only ones I saw was just a scrolls and ink cell. This whole ordeal made me appreciate the value of books as a whole. You don't really need them to survive, not in a way you need food or shelter. In other words, books are more of a luxury. I think some people collect and admire for their beauty as much as their content. I was lucky growing up. One of Mrs. Biscotti's favorite things to collect were books, which meant we had a decent collection. Meanwhile, the vast majority of people live and die without ever touching one. But knowledge is not merely a luxury, it holds power. A sword can defend a kingdom for a generation, but the words inside a book can change the course of history for centuries to come. Besides, books held the power to make their author immortal. These books leave their legacy behind, marking the course of history in one way or another. Although as incredible as books are, knowledge can also be dangerous. Knowledge can make us question power, still rebellion, at least the one down past no sword could ever carve. Perhaps that's why they've become so rare. It's not just the cost of parchment or ink. It's the knowledge itself that holds monetary value. Sadly, most people don't think of books as necessities because they can't see the immediate benefit from them. To be fair though, I can't really blame them for thinking that way. When survival hangs in the balance, the need for knowledge becomes secondary. As I trailed behind my own thoughts, a delightful smell invaded my senses. It was the scent of fresh ink and parchment. I turned my head in the direction of this aroma, setting my sights in a little bookstore tucked between two grander shops. The one to the left was selling jeweled trinkets, while the one to the right appeared to be offering lining and other fancy fabrics. Directing my attention back to the bookstore, I caught a glimpse of a wooden sign which read, "The Scholar's Refuge." The name itself was a little silly, but at the same time interesting enough to pique my curiosity. It made me wonder what type of books would be offered in a place with a name like that. Taking my eyes off the sign, I noticed how small the building was, almost half the size of the rest of the houses on the street. Which really made me wonder if the Royal Library was monopolizing the book market. In any case, with a purse full of coins ready to be spent, I decided to enter this unique shop. First thing that hit me as I opened the door was the smell of floral incense, possibly sage. The place wasn't large, but it had a cozy, almost magical feel to it. The shelves were crammed with tomes that looked far older than any book I've ever owned, although probably not as old as those I saw within the library. Those were actually ancient. In any case, I walked to the front desk and rang a cute little bell that was sitting on top of it. "One moment," said someone from the back, whose voice sounded a bit agitated. Soon enough, a pile of books crashed on top of the desk as a very fluffy black-furred wolf dropped them on top of the wooden top. His fur was a little messy, and I could see some dust on top of his black nose, meaning that he was most likely cleaning. "Welcome to the Scholar's Refuge, sir. My name is John. Happy to have you here. Is there anything in particular you were looking for?" Well, to be honest, the wolf seemed everything but happy to have another customer. Actually, he looked quite tired. His eye bags were very prominent. His eyes were a bit red and unfocused, like he hadn't slept properly in days. Made me wonder if that was a common occurrence between scholars, as it reminded me of a certain wolf. No, not really. I was just thinking about browsing for a bit. Absolutely, we have a vast selection of books for you to choose from. Just say the word if you see anything you like. I will, thank you. With that, the wolf returned to the back of the shop. I, on the other hand, stared dumbfoundedly at the great selection of tomes and scrolls laid in front of me. I could easily get lost in these halls, however, would that really be such a bad thing? It doesn't sound like a bad idea, it's just me and the books for an entire day, away from all the outside problems. Wasn't expecting to run into you here. Ikalis' voice made me jump higher than I'm proud to admit, though in my defense I was not expecting anyone else to be here. "Goddesses, you scared the living crap out of me." My apologies. I believe you had seen me." The Korean wolf seemed apologetic enough for scaring me, so I decided to let it slide. Besides, he clearly didn't mean it. "It's fine. It's not your fault, man. Why are you here, though?" "Well, I decided to purchase a few books for my personal collection." "Oh yeah? Aren't the books at the Royal Library enough? Why would you need to buy more? Let's just say this type of book cannot be found within the library." Ikalis' cheeks turned a little red as he hid the two books that he was carrying behind his back. Perhaps it were those fancy Perhaps it was those fantasy novels he liked so much. He did mention he was not allowed to read those in front of the bookkeepers or his uncle. After all, it was unbecoming of the Grand Master to waste their time with that kind of literature. Whichever the case, I decided not to push it. Last thing I wanted was to make the wolf feel uncomfortable. Anyway, may I ask you the same question? Well, it's a long story. To make it short, though, I've been having some horrid nightmares lately. So my butler, Zach, decided to bring me all the way out here for a healer's appointment. Once that was done, I had some time to kill, so I walked around and ended up here. I see. Personally, I would have recommended you the same. Getting a healer's perspective is always a good step to take when you're feeling ill. However, with a problem as abstract as yours, perhaps the answer doesn't lie within a healer's knowledge. Yes, my thoughts exactly. The old man just recommended that I drink some tea. Isn't that ridiculous? Well, it's true that some herbs may help you to fall asleep faster. The thing is, falling asleep isn't a problem. Falling asleep isn't a problem, but rather attaining a restful night. So I'm kind of screwed. How about you ask the attendant for any books about sleeping? Perhaps he's come across one that will help you in your predicament. Maybe he's right. I should look for something that will help me with my sleep, because I'm sure some stupid plants won't do the trick. Okay, sure. No harm in trying, yes? Let's hope there's something in here about how to avoid nightmares. Yeah, as I agreed with the wolf, I rang the bell once more to call the attendant's attention. It took John only a few seconds to reappear in front of me, although he seemed to be even more dusty than before. Yes? Do you have any books about how to sleep better? I've had some very disturbing nightmares in the past few days, and I'm having trouble resting properly. The wolf placed a hand on his chin and looked up properly, trying to remember any book that would fit my needs. Perhaps I do. In a quick motion, the man grabbed a small journal he had concealed in his pocket and flipped through the pages, stopping under the letter D. Dreams. Here it is. Dreamweaver's Journal, Self, 12, Section 6. Please follow me. Without another word, the wolf set off in a random direction. We followed him through the narrow aisles, where the sift of old parchment and dust grew heavier as we went deeper into the store. Shelves stretched above us, packed tightly with volumes in each shade of leather and paper. Some crumbling at the edges, others meticulously bound and gleaming like they had just come from the scribe's desk. We arrived at Self 12, Section 6, where John reached up and carefully pulled out a small, unassuming book bound in dark green leather. It had no title on the cover, just a simple, elegant symbol etched in gold. A crescent moon intertwined with vines. This is the Dreamweaver's Journal, John said, brushing a bit of dust from its surface. There's only 5 copies of this book in the entire world, and it was written by some unknown bird scholar in the years of the First Great War. The wolf seemed proud of himself, almost as if the mere fact of obtaining this honor was a grand accomplishment of his own. Besides, this was the first time I've seen him express any emotion aside from boredom. This scholar believed that dreams were more than just the workings of our minds. They thought nightmares were messages, warnings from the gods, or glimpses of things to come. There are also long and complex explanations as to how to traverse these dreams, training the mind into being able to fight off the nightmares. Wow, really? That's amazing. Yes, it's a very unique book. He handed the book to me, and as I flipped it open, I saw how the pages were filled with delicate handwriting along with odd symbols and diagrams. Many had found solace in this text. There are practices within it, ways to calm the mind and the soul. You should buy it before someone else does. After all, I can't assure whether this book will be back in stock or not. Finding a copy was already hard, let alone two. You're not actually buying any of this crap, are you? Ikalis said with his eyebrow raised and his arms crossed. I mean, it couldn't hurt to try, right? I thought you didn't believe in this kind of thing. I shrugged, flipping through the pages again. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Besides, if it'll stop me from spending another night waking up in cold sweats, I'll try anything. Even the stupid herbs or the crazy book. Even if it's a half-baked theory from an unknown bird scholar. You just, dear Grandmaster, but the amount of knowledge the old bird empire amounted to was astronomical. You shouldn't underestimate them. Ikalis huffed at John's comment, but decided to say nothing else. I tapped the cover of the Dreamweaver's journal, feeling its strange weight in my hand. Nightmares and warnings from the gods, huh? Makes you wonder what kind of warnings I'm getting. Ikalis gave a small, supportive nod and again decided not to make a comment. Instead, he looked around the dim aisles of the shop, tapping his foot into a thoughtful manner. I'll take it, I finally said to John, who smiled brightly at my answer. Wonderful, let me wrap it up for you. The wolf grabbed the book in his hands and then headed back towards the counter. Ikalis and I, on the other hand, stayed by the cells, none of us saying a word. Although there was something in my mind I wished to discuss with the wolf. You know, I keep thinking about my mom. She was the best healer I ever knew, which means that she didn't believe in superstitions or God sending messages through dreams. She and my dad were non-believers, actually. She probably laughed at the idea that I'm even considering this. Perhaps. I know I am laughing at you. I looked at him with the most offended expression I could muster, which made the wolf chuckle. Internally, of course. Still, it doesn't mean there isn't wisdom in exploring different ways of thinking. Even the most rational minds can overlook what lies in the realm of the unknown. As I looked into the wolf's eyes for a split moment, a thought crossed my mind. He's pretty cool, isn't he? I'm gonna skip some more. I mean, there's a whole new city to explore, and instead I'm just sitting under a tree wasting precious time. Like, what the heck is wrong with me? I can't let this bring me down. There are so many places I could explore. The possibilities are endless. With that in mind, I jumped up from the sitting position I was in, suddenly feeling full of energy. Let's go see what the higher city can afford us. As I reached the stone steps that led me up to the higher city, I could feel the air shift. The calm I had just experienced under the tree slowly faded as the sounds of the bustling market replaced the rustling of leaves. A child dashed by, nearly knocking into me, followed by a breathless woman who called out his name. I sat and stepped, chuckling under my breath at the sight of those two, then continued walking down the street. So I reached the main road, and I took a deep breath. The city streets opened up before me full of life and noise. Market stalls lined the streets, filled with goods from all over the continent, spices, fruits, delicate trinkets that glistened in the morning light, and many other things. Shopkeepers sounded their wares, and people jostled each other as they moved from stall to stall. There was something oddly comforting about the chaos, and in a way, the people from up here were not entirely different from the lower district citizens. So I felt right at home among the clamor of the market, where I wouldn't have to think too hard about my dreams or anything at all. Lost in thought as I was, I almost missed a certain orange-furred wolf that walked by the edge of my vision. At first I didn't think it was Ikalis, probably someone who looked similar to him. I thought he was probably buried in work at the moment, but the more I thought about him, the more uncertain I became. What if it was really him? Given the fact that he still hadn't seen me, I decided to trail behind him, curiosity getting the best of me. I walked at a reasonable distance from him, hoping that he didn't notice me. My mind soon drifted to the many possibilities that led Ikalis to leave his precious library to roam the busy streets of the market. It could be that he's just buying a little souvenir. But what if I end up finding one of Ikalis' deep, dark secrets? That type of gossip doesn't just drop from the sky, you have to earn it. Besides, there was something about his hurried pace and the way he was keeping his head down that made me really curious. As I followed him, the busy market gave way to quieter streets. The sounds of tagging and laughter faded, replaced by the occasional murmur of a passerby or the distant clop of hooves. I hardly knew this part of the city, never been here before. Furthermore, the wolf was making so many sharp turns that I thought we were lost. Where was the wolf going? We walked for many minutes, so many that I lost count. The sky started to turn gray, threatening us with the possibility of rain. I looked past the wolf for the first time, and my eyes locked on a certain structure that stood up from the others. In front of us there was a big building that had similar features to churches that are spread across the city. This one, though, was more of a cloister than a church. Upon close inspection, I managed to see a bronze inscription which read St. Cyril Mental Institution, home to the city's mentally ill. Huh? City's mentally ill? Never heard that term before. Makes me wonder what type of institution this is. By the name alone, all I can guess is that this is a place where insane people live, although I'm not sure I'm correct. Most importantly, though, what is the wolf doing here? What sort of business could he possibly have in a place like this? Whichever the case, I soon watched Ikalis approach the entrance to the building. His steps faltered slightly, just for a moment before he spoke to the guard. It took him mere seconds as they exchanged a few words, too low for me to hear, which ended up with the guard nodding and allowing Ikalis through. I stood there for a moment, debating my next move. Perhaps I should leave and respect his privacy. Fuck, even if I actually believed that, there was something that wouldn't let me turn away. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe I just wanted to make sure he was okay. Whatever the case, I mentally decided that I wouldn't leave the wolf alone. A few seconds passed before I decided to approach the gate, pretending to be out of breath. The guard eyed me suspiciously, his hand rested on the hilt of his weapon, ready to strike me down. It was a scary thought. Nevertheless, I kept my act up, not showing even a smidge of fear. I have first-hand experience with bigger guards than you, sir. You don't scare me one bit. State your purpose. I was the scholar who just entered. Let me through. I tried to talk with the most stoic and commanding voice I could muster, trying to play it off as if I was someone important to be, as if I was someone important to not be messed with. He raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. Lord Ikalis didn't mention any visitors. Are you blind, perhaps? I was but mere steps behind him. I swear to the goddesses that wolf walks too fast sometimes. You cannot pass. Just as he said that, I acted as if he had just insulted my whole family, using Princess Ruby as a perfect reference for that. Well, do you even know who I am? I'm Sir Eli Biscotti. I'm the newest retainer hired by His Highness himself, and a close friend of Sir Ikalis. So unless you want to answer the king, I advise you let me through. He hesitated, obviously unsure if anything I was saying was actually true. Luckily, the guard decided to play it safe, opening the gate behind him. Charisma check pass. I slipped inside before he could change his mind, my heart pounding as the oppressive silence in the cloister enveloped me. Man, I can't believe the old "do you even know who I am" trick actually worked. It was totally awesome. In any case, I decided not to dwell longer at the entrance, as perhaps the guard would change his mind. The interior was cold and dimly lit. The air felt thick and heavy, with the smell of damp, Stone Age, old misery. There was some extravagant paintings adorning the walls, alongside some banners and candles. As I explored the premises, I heard the echo of footsteps, a faint scream, and then the shuffle of something metallic, which could perhaps be keys or the clanging of a gate in the distance. I moved slowly and carefully, my ears alert, for any sound of Ikalis. The long, narrow corridor stretched ahead, leading to rows of small barred doors, which only had a small gap or window from which you could see the interior of the rooms, or cells, as you could hardly call them a room. Some were empty, but in some others there were people from all genders and ages trapped inside. I couldn't help but wonder what sort of crimes they could have committed, but I decided not to pay much attention to that. After all, I had a wolf to find. As I walked down the corridors, the heavy silence of the cloister pressed against me, broken only by the occasional shuffling from the rooms on either side. It took me at least 10 minutes of walking before I got any sign of life rather than the people inside the cells. There were footsteps echoing ahead, so I decided to follow them. Soon after, I heard a familiar voice, which meant the wolf couldn't be far from here, which proved to be true because I almost bumped into him as I turned the corner. I hid behind the wall as quickly as I could, and luckily it looked like he didn't notice me. Ikalis was standing in front of one of the doors, wearing his usual poker face, the kind he uses when he doesn't want to let his feelings show. Although there was something different in his posture, his shoulders were down and his tail was tucked between his legs, showing his distress. This was actually the first time I've seen him this distressed. I stayed back, hidden behind the corner, but close enough to observe. He didn't knock, he didn't call out, he didn't even move an inch. He just waited, a silence stretching out between him and the door, as though it were a barrier he couldn't quite bring himself to cross. I leaned closer, straining to hear anything from the other side of the door, but the room was quiet as a tomb. Only sounds I could hear were the distant shuffling of other paces down the hall, the occasional cough, the muffled scream or muttered word from behind the other barred doors. It was eerie, this silence, I mean. Almost like the whole cloister had been forgotten by the rest of the world. Finally, Ikalis exhaled slowly, his shoulders stiff as a board. For a moment, I thought he might turn away and leave, but he didn't move. Instead, he placed his hand gently against the wooden surface of the door, his finger brushing the rough grain, as though searching for some kind of connection through the barrier. "Father," he whispered so softly that I almost didn't catch it. His voice that was usually steady and unchanging cracked just a little. He waited a little, probably waiting for a response from the other side, but as it never came, the wolf carried on. "Sorry for not coming to visit earlier. We've been so extremely busy at the library, I hardly had any time left." The wolf chuckled, although it was a sad and almost defeated laugh. "Believe it or not, things got even more hectic in the past month. One bookkeeper had to resign from his job. He was too old already, so the library let him go. Still, I wish we hadn't. You know what a hassle it is to find a new one." Ikalis leaned on the door, making himself comfortable and relaxing a bit. And don't get me started with the mess that Fox has been. Remember I told you about him a month ago? Well, it's been a whole month. Time still flies by fast, doesn't it, Father? My curiosity grew even more as Ikalis started to talk about me to his dad. So I pressed my ear closer to the wall, hoping to get a perfect hearing of what he was saying. He's irresponsible, an airhead getting distracted easily, and makes me waste hours of my day tutoring him about basic subjects. Oh, dang. I didn't think Ikalis held me in low regard like that. Although I suppose my arrival to his life has been very disruptive. Remember, that's what I told you last month. But even with all that, he's funny, kind, always listens to me, and he's the first person who actually cares. It's strange, Father. I was raised to thinking that people were nothing but stepping stones. You create relationships because of need. A man marries a woman because he wants an heir. A woman marries a man because she wants stability. Friendships are established because you desire something from the other person. People are interdiscent or transcendental. And yet, I find myself drawn towards him. Worst thing is, Ellie has nothing that could be of interest to me, nothing at all. Despite that, he's the only relationship that, to this day, I hold close to my heart. He makes me laugh with his silliness, and I feel so at ease when I am around him, as if the rest of the world didn't matter at all. It's the strangest thing. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest, as I listened to Ikalis' soft words. Hearing Ikalis say all those nice things about me makes my insides feel jittery, as if 1,000 butterflies were flying around in my gut. Ikalis, who always seemed so composed, so self-assured, keeping everyone at arm's length, even me. I would have never guessed that he thought of me in this way. It felt strange hearing him talk so openly, though, especially to his father, who I wasn't even sure could hear him. For a brief moment, I felt guilty for eavesdropping. This was a deeply private conversation not meant for anyone else's ears. The thought of leaving them alone and pretending nothing happened crossed my mind, and that would be the right thing to do. I wish I could meet him, Father. He's a mess, but I think you two would get along. I bit my lip, finding an urge to step forward to reveal myself. Part of me wanted to run over and tell him I was here. That he didn't have to hide who he was around me ever, and then hug him so tight his ribs would break. But another part of me was afraid that seeing me now might shatter whatever quiet connection we had. I mean, what if he thinks I was spying on him like a creep? I wouldn't want that to happen. I miss you, Father. Ikalis whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I hope you're still in there somewhere. That you can still hear me. He paused, and for a second there, I could swear I saw a tear running down his cheek. I need you. You have no idea how much. I don't know what I'm doing. I've been trying to keep it all together, but sometimes it feels like everything's slipping through my fingers. I could really use your help right now. The wolf stopped mid-sentence, probably hoping that by some miracle his father, who had been silent the whole time, talked back to him. Well, I have to go. It was nice talking to you, Father. I will try to come back sooner. After a long silence, Ikalis finally straightened up, brushing his hand lightly against the door one last time before stepping away. His shoulders were slumped, and a defeated look in his eyes as he turned back towards the corridor. I quickly retreated, making sure he wouldn't spot me. I just wasn't ready to face him just yet, not after hearing everything he had just said, although I knew that I needed to discuss this with him sooner or later. Skip. Man, even though I'm worried about Almond and I'm really scared of Roderick, I can't let Ikalis alone with those piranhas he calls family. So with a heavy heart, I decided to ignore the weeping wolf and instead focus my attention on accompanying Ikalis to this reunion. But to do that, I need to change and freshen up. To the shower I go then. The crisp evening air brushed against my fur as I stood outside the Royal Library, waiting for Ikalis to show up. The suit I was wearing, which was far too formal for my taste, felt stiff against it, just like last time. Goddesses, I hate this freaking thing. It's hard to breathe, and it makes me feel like I can't move freely. I tugged at the collar, trying to loosen the tightness around my neck, feeling more and more impatient with each passing second. Where is he? It's been 40 minutes. I said to myself, tapping my foot impatiently as I kept struggling with a damn shirt. The massive stone building loomed before me, looking just as fancy and imposing as the Royal Castle itself, but on a smaller scale. Golden lanterns flickered faintly, casting a soft glow on the steps leading up to this entrance. No music or talking could be heard coming from the inside, so it really didn't look like any sort of celebration was being held in this place. A chill ran down my spine as I imagined myself being forced to start awkward conversations or having to smile in front of people I didn't know. I mean, it's probably obvious by now, but I've never been one for formal gatherings, or most social events for that matter. And yet here I am, ready to dive into one for a friend. I sighed, glancing up at the starry sky, trying to keep my mind from racing. Although that didn't last for long, as I quickly started to pace in frustration again, not being able to control my thoughts. Maybe I can leave, but maybe I can still leave. Yeah, I'm sure no one would notice. I can tell him I had a terrible accident and... You look good, Ellie. I'm glad you could make it. In the middle of planning my escape scheme, a familiar voice called from behind, snapping my attention back to reality. I turned around and smiled at the wolf, trying my best to self down and bury every single thought about escaping. Got a lot of grammar and spelling issues here. Hey, you also look nice. The wolf was wearing his typical robes, which made me wonder if maybe I was overdressed. I was expecting you to wear something more formal. Well, this is what I always wear for work, and this is a work meeting. So there was no need to get on one of those uncomfortable suits. Ikalis' casual demeanor contrasted sharply with my own discomfort in this stiff suit, which makes my cheeks turn a little red. I was totally overdressed, wasn't I? Damn it, I knew I would mess this up somehow. Well, you could have warned me, you know? I yes, apologies. I suppose I forgot to mention the dress code in my letter. On the bright side, though, you look really good in that suit. Ikalis' compliment caught me off guard, and I quickly glanced away, trying to hide the blood creeping up my face. Thanks. I mounted my fingers, visiting the cuffs of the jacket, and his soft chuckle making my cheeks turn even redder. You're probably overthinking it, so please try to relax. The wolf gave me a gentle nudge on the shoulder before leading the way towards the doors of the Royal Library. The inside of the library looked just as I remembered it, with a slight difference that it wasn't completely desolated this time around. A small crowd had formed around the main lobby where most of the noise was coming from, although I wouldn't call these guests a crowd, as there were just 20 old-looking men talking amongst themselves. Most of them turned around to meet Ikalis, offering him fake smiles and empty compliments. None turned to greet me, which was really nice, as I didn't want to interact with these geezers more than necessary. They honestly gave me the creeps. We will need to rearrange the entire bird and reptiles biology section with the latest discoveries on evolution, as we thought we knew is being morphed. A very excited old man stared at Ikalis as the wolf tried to have a drink, probably to calm his nerves. Do not be ridiculous. It's impossible for birds and reptiles to be related. It's simply an absurd theory. Another old man joined the conversation, shutting down his companion's claims entirely. The two guys kept fighting over birds and reptiles for a while, a chance Ikalis and I took to swiftly escape the situation. Man, are they like that all the time? More or less, yes. They are all pretty stubborn and difficult to deal with. Especially those two, always fighting about biology and whatnot. Ikalis drank from his glass of wine before slowly rubbing his templets. I, on the other hand, couldn't help but stifle a laugh as I watched Ikalis take another sip, who was clearly using alcohol as the only means to get through the night. Well, I don't envy you. If I had to listen to that all day, I'd lose it. I whispered, leaning closer to him as we tried to keep the conversation to ourselves. Ikalis sighed, swirling the wine in his glass absent-mindedly. You get used to it, though it doesn't make it any less exhausting. He glanced around the room, his sharp eyes scanning the familiar faces of scholars, most of whom were too wrapped up in their own intellectual debates to even notice us. You think if I make some sort of crazy theory about an uncategorized species, they will let me in on the fun? Maybe throw an unknown bird-lizard hybrid to spice things up. Ikalis chuckled, though there was an weariness to it. Please don't. That would be too much work for me. They would most likely ask me to organize an entire symposium just to disprove you. We made our way towards a quiet corner of the library, far from the loud conversations and endless debates. I placed my hand on Ikalis' shoulder in an attempt to make him feel a little less stressed out. So, how long until the party actually starts? The man looked back at me with a tired smile, drinking the rest of his wine. The fun part hasn't even started yet. They're late. Who are? Just as I asked that, the library's doors opened wide, allowing a night breeze to slip through. Some of the candles around the room were blown off by it, making the ambience feel even colder. A pair of Quinwolves made their way into the room, and I immediately recognized them as Ikalis' relatives. Ikalis and his daughter Petra strolled through the library's lobby as if they owned the place. All the bookkeepers bowed their heads as they greeted the pair. Meanwhile, Ikalis was looking at them as if they were a pair of cockroaches that had somehow crawled onto his dinner plate. I tried not to chuckle as the wolf was clearly failing at matching his true emotions. But as it became too apparent, I noticed him on the side trying to snap him off whatever trance he was into. Fix your face. I whispered into his ear, and Ikalis quickly composed himself, his jaw tightening as he forced a more neutral expression. Thank you. Eventually, father and daughter reached our side, both of them smiling to greet Ikalis, although one of those was clearly fake. Hiya, sis. Or hiya, cuss. Nephew. What a pleasant surprise. The man said with a certain disgust, as if merely speaking to Ikalis would get him infected of some sort of disease. You've done a decent job at preparing this meeting. I suppose I owe you my thanks. And for the love of the goddesses, will someone shut that damn door? As if he were the master of an orchestra, a single movement of his hand, and three men were already at the door closing it shut. I looked at him, trying to comprehend how he could even be related to such a gentle soul as Ikalis. They could honestly not be any more different from each other. Good evening, Uncle. Lady Petra. It's a pleasure to have you here. So even after such a display, Ikalis took the high road and put on his best act. Ah, I see you brought your friend with you. The older wolf turned to me, a smirk appearing on his face as he met my gaze. Damn, he's just as unlikable as I remember. Greetings to you both. I decided not to be rude and kindly address the two wolves, bowing my head as a sign of respect, or bowing. Lady Petra smiled at me, while her father just frowned, not even trying to hide his discomfort. Ah, my dear Tess Seljet, what a pleasure to see you again. If we have the time, we should definitely continue with our experiment. Lady Petra said with a childish grin and plaster all over her face. Meanwhile, both Ikalis and Dracalis raised an eyebrow at our little interaction. Test subject. It's a long story. Well, no matter. Do you prepare when I ask you, or do I have to do everything around here? Ikalis' uncle disregarded my presence entirely, only directing the conversation at the wolf. Yes, uncle, the stage is ready. The protection circle has been casted around this stage. Hopefully this time she won't burn anything. That time it was just a miscalculation. This time my precious crystal has been properly calibrated. Petra's excited Petra's excitement was met by Ikalis' frown, who clearly doesn't trust his cousin. Although I would not trust her as well, given the stunt she pulled off at the royal ball. In any case, do try to stand inside the circle at all times. Aye aye. Petra just brushed aside his cousin's concern, meaning that she is either overconfident or just an idiot. Or maybe both. In any case, if you'll excuse me, we have a presentation to give. As Ikalis and Petra made their way to prepare for the presentation, Ikalis sighed heavily, the strain evident in his posture. Let's go, he said as he glanced at me, his weariness amplified in the dim lighting of the library. I followed without him, neither of us wishing to stay and watch whatever spectacle Petra was about to do. We moved through the hallways until we reached a door leading to a small private office tucked away in a quiet corner of the library. Ikalis introduced this place as his personal study, although this looked more like a broom closet than an office. Ikalis slumped into a chair, exhaling in frustration. He looked at me for a second before motioning me to sit down. Nice place, pretty cozy. Yeah, thanks. Only place where there's some peace and quiet. The wolf sighed deeply, slouching on the couch as he looked through the small window. Noticing this, I decided to sit as well, looking directly into Ikalis' eyes, or trying to as he insisted in looking away. However, after a few seconds of silence, I asked him a simple yet loaded question. Are you okay? No answer. The wolf merely sighed once more, and then adjusted himself in the chair. Do you really enjoy this? I asked out of the blue, and this time there was a clear reaction. The question had been on my mind for a while, especially after watching how much stress this line of work seemed to put on him. Are you really happy? Ikalis stared at his wine glass for a moment, swirling the liquid before taking a long sip. Then his eyes met mine, and for the first time tonight, the mask he'd been wearing slipped just a little. I do enjoy it, from time to time. It's my father's legacy, after all. I have to like it. This is the only thing I have left of him, his work, his research, his reputation. If I abandon it, what does that make me? I could feel Ikalis' pain through his words, which were carrying not just his own burden, but the memory of his father. It's far from easy, though, and some days I even wonder if I'm just fooling myself. The room fell silent for a moment, the only sound being the faint murmurs of the crowd from the lobby. The weight of his words lingered in the air, and I sat uncomfortably in my seat. Ikalis, the guy who always seemed so composed, was now sitting across from me in this dimly lit, cramped office, looking more worn down than ever. I hesitated before speaking, unsure how to approach this situation, but the thought had been gnawing at me for a while now. You know, it's not my business, but maybe it's time you stop living through your father's legacy. Ikalis' eyes flicked up from the glass window, narrowing slightly. For a second, it looked like he wanted to say something, but he just resorted to sighing and looking down. Ikalis, you dedicated yourself to his work, his research, his reputation. But what about you? Now, maybe I was overstepping a little, but I think he needs to hear this. What about the things you like? Any hobbies, any relationships outside the library circle? I just think maybe you should try something different. You're not him, Ikalis. You're your own person. Maybe it's time to figure out what you want outside of all this. He stared at me, the tension in his posture softening just a little, as if my words caught him off guard. It's not that simple. This is all I know, all I have. If I lose it, I fear there will be nothing left. I am the Grand Master. Aside from that, who am I? The wolf clenched his fist hard, so hard I feared he would draw blood. I offered him a soft smile, trying to be as supportive as I could. You are someone who has many options. You should find something new that you actually enjoy. You can't keep sacrificing your happiness for something that's not even yours. Ikalis just sat there, staring into the window once more as if searching for answers. I understand what you mean, but this is my path, just like my father's and his father, and the many ones before him. I can't give up. I just can't. For the first time ever, Ikalis' walls broke down entirely, and I could finally see what lay under the surface. The often stoic and cold wolf was now a little scared puppy. He tilted his head sideways a little, trying to hide tears from my view, portraying myself as an unyielding scholar. Yet their low and gentle sniffles betrayed his intentions. Well, if that's what you want, you don't have to carry this weight alone. I'm here. If you want me to be. Ikalis let out a shaky breath, his tears slowly subsiding. He pulled back after a while, wiping his face with the back of his hand, embarrassed by the vulnerability he had just sown. I'm sorry. You didn't need to see that. Don't apologize. We're friends, aren't we? This is what I'm here for. Yeah, friends. Ikalis muttered that word almost as if it were foreign to him, like a completely unknown concept that he's just starting to comprehend. He shifted in his seat, trying to straighten up, as though willing himself to regain some semblance of control. I'm not used to leaning on people, at least not like this. I smiled softly, trying to lighten the mood, grabbing his hand and squeezing it tight. Well, maybe it's time you got used to it. Alright, so we're done with Ikalis, and we're done with the entire update. So we covered everybody, and I think we covered everything. So and alright, so we got to see the mask of Ikalis shatter, or at least, well, not shatter, but it came off for a brief moment. The mask that Ikalis was having, that Ikalis had on, it came off for a brief moment, and this stoic, cold person is just let himself be vulnerable towards Ellie. And you know, like he said, he lived his whole life being taught either by his father, I guess, or by, well, probably his father too, but his uncle and all the elite people he's been around. He's been taught his whole life that to have a relationship with somebody, it's for an end, like it's for convenience. Like, this is a society that's built on pragmatism. You gotta do what you gotta do to get what you want. So you have to have bonds with people if you want to get something you want. So in my view, Ellie represents something that's opposite to what this society is. He is very much a kind and idealistic person, while this society here is very cold and pragmatic. And, you know, being pragmatic has been drilled so much into into Ikalis' mind that he really doesn't know what a friend is. I mean, a friend is not someone that you get close to get something out of them. A friend is someone who you can, just get, you get to know them, and be with them, but someone to be there to help you, and when you go into some bad times, like in even good times, just someone to talk to and have some and receive kindness from. Because he was very honest while he was speaking to his father. I did not know his father was dead, or maybe his father was still alive, but he was not in his right mind, and because of that, Ikalis talked to his father as if he were dead. Because it's a mental institution that Ikalis was in, and Ellie snuck up on him. So I think his father was in there alive, but his mind was gone. So Ellie talked to him as if he was dead. But anyway, I could be wrong. But anyway, he was brutally honest about Ellie. Yes, he's messy, and he's, he doesn't really obey orders, and he probably doesn't take things all that seriously, but as he should have, as it should be, But he also realized that Ellie is kind, and he's somebody who's willing to help, and that's something that Ikalis has come to value, because those traits about Ellie is probably something that he rarely ever gets from the people who he deals with all the time, the elite people. These elite people, for the most part, is cold and pragmatic and only think about themselves and think about furthering their goals. They don't be with people just for a good time and just be friendly with. They just form relationships for their own agenda and for their own purposes, and to get what they want. So I mean, that's what Ellie provides to Ikalis. He provides kindness and comfort in this company. Sure, Ellie is really a nobody, and that's what Ikalis basically told his father, that Ellie's a nobody. But Ellie provides something to Ikalis that the somebodies and the some things don't have, or at least the somebodies and some things in this society, in this particular society, doesn't have, and that's kindness and compassion. And his cold, it causes cold behavior, and is reflective of the people he be around. The people he's always been around. He's always been around elite people because he's part of an elite heritage, and you want to further your family name. You got to act a certain way. You got to be cold. You got to to have on a certain attitude. You just got to do everything scripted. And he's probably been used to that so much that he just became a cold person, just like all the other people he's been around and all the people in his class, and he just don't know all that much about compassion. Well, he probably knows about comparison, but he's probably just been so used to, just though people being cold and pragmatic that he adopted that behavior, and that's all he's been used to acting. So, yeah. So, so like Roderick, Ikalis is very cold and very uptight. Though he's not like he doesn't he's not abrasive about it like Roderick is, but those are two qualities that both he and Roderick have. Both of them are cold and stoic. While Almond is the opposite from the other two. Almond is this cheerful and idealistic person and very optimistic about everything. And Ellie, he managed to make all three of them open up. He made Roderick open up. He made Ikalis open up. And while Almond seemed to be this person who was very open about everything, he had some things. He was kind of closed off as well. In some ways, he was closed off too because of his previous life, in his childhood, and in the family he was with, being a bastard child. So he was also hiding some things from Ellie. So even he needed to open up some, and Ellie was there to help. So we got to learn a lot more about all three of them. And we got to see Roderick expose the soft side to Ellie. I just like that as the story progresses, these characters are opening up to Ellie because of Ellie and his presence and him just talking to them. Ellie just brings about a presence that others don't, and he's willing to talk to them about their problems, which is what other people don't do. So, in Ellie, he tells things that need to be said, things that other people won't tell them. So, I think Ellie being in their lives is making them better. He's that person that they need to talk to. So, I really enjoyed this update. We got to see why Almond was so mad when Ellie talked to him about him wanting him to that guy at the ball. I forgot his name, but well, we got to see why he was so upset about that. We got to see Roger open up, and we got to see Ikalis wonder if there's more to himself than just his father's legacy. Because I believe there's way more to Ikalis than just him carrying out his father's legacy, his family. It's just more to him just being the Grand Master and all that. But it is something he is very duty bound about. he's very much, he believes it's his duty to carry out his father's work in his lineage. And while he does get stressed out from the job, it's something he does want to do, and he doesn't want to relinquish it. He doesn't want to relinquish it. Excuse me. He wants to keep doing it. I mean, in my personal opinion, he can. I mean, I'm not want him to get rid of it entirely. I mean, he can still do it, but you know, that could be part of what identifies him as. But I think he can also do more. You know, do other things that he wants, other than just that. You know, carry out his father's legacy. I mean, it's admirable of him to do that, and I believe that's certainly a part of Ikalis. But I think he should also just think about being more about himself, you know, and not so much only carrying out his father's legacy. But you know, if Ikalis could put his personality and his traits into the legacy, just like his father and all the people before him did, then I think that will work. You know, I mean, each generation, they inherit something, and then they add their own little flavor and their own way of doing things to the legacy, and it progresses further as each generation goes. So I don't think Ikalis needs to do exactly what the people before him did, but you know, do his own thing with legacy, add something to it that he wants, and something that is a part of him. So that's everything for this update so far. We did all three of them, and hopefully it won't be over a year until the next update comes, because this is the first update in over a year now. And the creator apologized for this, so hopefully we won't have to wait another year for an update to come out. Hopefully, maybe either by the end of this year or maybe early next year. You know, the early half of next year, there'll be another update out. So, thank all very much for watching. Bye.